Usually the biggest problem is we're not going deep enough into the information. So I have been in ketosis or ketogenic diet, fat adapted for a long time now. It's basically been about 2 years for me, and I love it. It works perfect for me. I've got great energy. I don't have to waste time refueling on carbs every 3 or 4 hours. I don't have a carb crash pretty much ever in my life. I mean, yes, I still am a normal person. I still go out for pizza. I still stay in for pizza sometimes. And let me tell you, Giordano's is my favorite. There's one up in Denver, and it's been a while since I've been to my favorite one, the flagship location in Chicago. Anyways. The biggest problem when people start talking about keto is not neato, XYZ, I'm going to change it up and we'll go directly to where this conversation started for me, and I can show you what's going on. Okay, so we got these real food gangsters right here, and here is a quote from them. I love it when people quote themselves. No, seriously, sometimes I do it, and I love it. Yeah, a guy loves it too. Anyways, low-carb diets encourage the body to stop releasing intestinal enzymes like sucrase that assist in the breakdown of sucrose and glucose and fructose. Real food gangsters. Anyways, so this is where their post becomes TLDR. But anyways, I'm going to read it for you. Why do so many people suffer with carbohydrate intolerance? It all begins here. Poor stress management. Stress not only affects the health and function of the digestive tract, it weakens thyroid function. When our digestive tract is weakened, the body cannot produce the proper enzymes needed to break down food. Okay, to add injury to insult, low carb diets, fear of carbohydrates, and the ketogenic diet then encourage the body to stop releasing intestinal enzymes like sucrase that assist in the breakdown sucrose in glucose and fructose. When you don't use it, you lose it. At some point after following a low-carb way of life, when energy begins to crash, you're chronically hungry, no longer sleeping, etc. And you decide to add carbohydrates back. Not only is your body in a worse state metabolically, your ability to tolerate carbs is weakened. The carbohydrates are not the problem. The problem is the state of the body the carbs are going. Okay. The state of the body that the carbs are going in. As you adapt your body to rely on fat versus carbs for energy, fat adaptation goes up while your ability to tolerate carbs goes down. What does this mean for your metabolic systems? High-fat diets interfere with the body's ability to store glucose as energy, which places a tremendous burden on the adrenal system, shuts down thyroid hormone conversion, and leaves our cells starved for energy. Low-carb diets claim the body can rely on sugars produced by the body via gluconeogenesis, a metabolic pathway that results in the generation of glucose from certain non-carbohydrate sources. Caution! Gluconeogenesis only occurs during periods of fasting, starvation, or low-carb dieting, and is stimulated by the diabetogenic hormones, glycogen, GH, adrenaline, and cortisol. If you are someone that has been low-carbing it for a while now, has experienced firsthand the negative effects of low-carb dieting, and have no idea how to add carbs back in without severe weight gain, join us. Okay. So, my lovely wife tagged me in this after one of her good friends tagged her, and I'll just take it right to my response. She hits me up and she's like, "What do you think?" And yes, she doesn't really want to do low carb ketogenic because she never got, this is my opinion, and that's all it is. I may be wrong. I'm married to this woman, so I admit I am wrong a lot. If you ask her, a lot more. Anyways, so this is what I had to say. Low carb does not equal keto, but keto is low carb. So when people are low carbing and they suffer from low energy, it's simply because their body is not burning ketones as fuel enough. Because once you get fat adapted, that means your primary source of fuel that your body prefers is fat. You will start to notice more energy. You will notice you don't need to refuel as often, as I started in the beginning of this to talk about. And as far as thyroid function and hormone production and enzyme production, One of the biggest things is that we need salt to digest the foods, to create the stomach acids, to create the bile secretions to digest our foods. A lot of the foods out there have had the enzymes removed because the enzymes would inhibit its shelf life. So for the sake of shelf life, we removed all those things from so many different foods so that they can sit out there longer and people don't lose out on, the profits because they spoiled too fast. So as far as the enzyme production going down, you can take enzyme supplements. You can add salt to your foods. You can add you can soak your nuts so that they digest better and are digested easier. It depends what we're talking about. The thing is, the primary thing here, in my opinion, is that people are not burning the ketones. They just swing from burning glucose until the glucose runs out. Then you're tired again. Then you get more glucose. And the simple thing to think about here is if you hold sugar in your hand and get it a little wet, which inside your body is going to be wet and warm, it's going to be sticky. Okay, that's the fact of the matter. Sucrose, glucose, fructose, all those things are sticky. All those things create the blockage of the arteries. If you're fat adapted, if you're burning fat as fuel, if you touch fat, it's smooth. The stuff runs smooth. If you melt it into an oil, you can cook in it and stuff doesn't stick on the pan. That's what I showed you in my cooking video about how to make stainless steel nonstick. Imagine the same thing in your body. If you're burning ketones, you're not going to have these issues of XYZ with the stickiness factor. So if you can imagine the problem with heart disease and clogged arteries and how they blame it on the LDL, the bad cholesterol. Dr. Darren goes through this very good in one of his debunking LDL is bad myths. It sticks because of the sugar that is all throughout your system that your body's used to burning, because then the fat will stick to it. It's like, imagine trying to cook in that stainless steel pan using sugar as a base and then throwing anything on top of it. It's going to stick, even if it is fat that you're throwing on top of it. If the baseline, everything you're doing is sugar, it leads to more problems. And there are so many things that support thyroid. And the bottom line is also stress management is a huge problem in this country. We don't have good methods of dealing with it. We don't stick to teas or anything that could reduce those things, or herbals. And most standard American diets, people don't take herbs. They don't drink teas. And the only way a lot of people will ever get into tea is if you load it up with sugar, sweet tea in the South, or load it up with honey and lemon. And that's the way I used to be. But those were the beginnings. Those were the gateways for me. And for me, when I went to ketones, switched over to a ketogenic diet, I didn't need to take but one meal a day that was keto. And my wife, if she met me today, compared to when I first got married to her, she would be utterly shocked because, man, I was raised that after dinner, you have a popsicle. After dinner, you have a bowl of ice cream. After dinner, you name it. For breakfast, you get Cocoa Puffs. I had a terrible sugar-loaded diet, and those things were all problems. But now I'm in better health. I feel better. And there's things that I can do now that support stress management. That is a serious thing that I agree with these guys on for sure. And as far as thyroid function and hormone production, those things, they have their other solutions as well. There's no way that going back to glucose, in my opinion, is a better idea. Now, in the beginning of my journey with keto, if I had any glucose, my body got inflamed fast and it hurt. Man, did it hurt. And then I'd take a couple of bitter melons and that would help lower my blood sugar naturally, herbally, which there's so many other things. And the biggest problem with thyroid support and thyroid hormones these days is that you just can't even get enough iodine naturally occurring in your diet. It's not in the soils. Most of the nutrients not in the soils. But there's plenty of things out there that can support the thyroid health hormones, like earthing, like iodine. And those things, I think, are fantastic ideas. Glucose, fructose, not so much. Sucrose, none of that stuff. So I avoid those things because the fatty liver problems, the calcified glands, the calcified body parts, organs, that's mainly, has a lot to do with sugars throughout your system. And Dr. Darren Schmidt just did a hour-long session on this one the other day about calcifying nanoparticles, where he talked about it. He said it's the biggest problem if you have sugars in your system, and these calcifying nanobacteria is what they speculate. They're so small, they're not even sure if they're alive, but they sure do promote stiffness and calcification of all those glands and organs, which that's not healthy organs, right? So finding out how to have a diet that works best for you, that's the most important thing. If you're just happy and you burn glucose all day long, you don't crash, you're not overweight, then cool. But for me, I burn ketones all day long. I can cheat any day that I wanted to. And seriously, normally I'm on an egg fast where I just eat eggs, like a dozen eggs, and I'm good for 24 hours. But when it comes to checking my levels, I just had a blood test recently. My cholesterol was fine. In the beginning on keto, they say your cholesterol can go up, but I don't know. We're way past that for me. And like I said, I'm doing just fine. But anyways, I wonder if they're going to say anything about this comment at all. But anyways, Dr. Darren Schmidt, Dr. Eric Berg, those are great resources for keto. It seems that anytime anybody says anything, then they cover it and they show the error of their ways. So keep trying, keep bringing this stuff up to me, guys. I will totally look into it and I'll give you my opinion because that's all it is. And you can have yours. But this entire comment that they put basically to me says you never actually switched over to burning ketones except for maybe for a minute and then you went and got more carbs.